Hey, what's going on? Luke here, and for today's video we're going to be doing one of my most requested videos, and that is to go over my Supercoach team, my fantasy team. Now, if you've been a fan of the channel for quite a long time or just know me personally, you know that I start off with fantasy teams. I usually start off pretty strong, get to origin period, and then I sort of fade away or I just stop playing it in general. But this year, once again, I say it every year, but I'm going to try and do it for the whole year. But we're going to start off with the team. I'm going to take you through my initial side. Now, I've picked this side before the round one sides have been named, so I'll probably make a few changes here and there based on selections and stuff. But I'm going to run you through my side and sort of go through my thought process on why I picked these guys, and also just talk about whether I think they're in for a big season in Supercoach and in general. So let's go ahead and take a look at my side. So you can see my team on the screen right now. We're going to start with fullback. We're going to work our way up. So you can see my fullback is James Tedesco, 843,100. I believe he's the most expensive player in the whole Supercoach. Pretty sure. I know Cameron Smith is up there despite him not even playing this year, but I'm pretty sure Tedesco's up there. You got Nathan Cleary as well. But yeah, I think Tedesco has like another 100,000 on the rest of them, and for good reason. A fantastic player. We all know how good he is. We all know how damaging he is, and we all know that he's a Supercoach god. He's a guy who makes meters week after week, scores a lot of tries, sets up tries, and I think even this year he might be goal kicking. Kyle Flanagan was a goal kicker last year. I've seen him doing some goal kicking practice. Now I believe Takiyaho would be your first choice, but he's a forward. He's not going to be on the field all the time. Therefore, they need another one. And James Tedesco seems to be one of the ones stepping up to maybe fill in the shoes of Flanagan. So even if he goal kicks, that's just another dimension to his game, and also the fantasy coach side of things as well. So I'm really excited to see how he goes. My backup is Joseph Suwali. Don't know what I'm going to do with him because there's no guarantees he's even going to be allowed to play this year. Looking to get an exemption. It's looking like it's going to happen. But even if he gets the exemption, I don't know exactly where you're playing because you got the Morris boys, you got Daniel Tupou, you have Joey Manu, you got Tedesco. So really, I can only see him covering injuries and also origin. Look, as good as this kid is and as much as he's hyped up, he's not going to be forcing any of those players out of the side at this point in his career. So I've just chucked him in purely because I needed someone cheap, and here's a name, and I feel like he will get a chance at some point this year. So I've just chucked him in there for the time being. We'll wait and see what the options are in terms of round one, see if there's any cheapies to chuck in there. But I've gone with Suwali. Also, he's versatile in the sense that he can play fullback and the centre wing position, so I can swap him out with some other players. Speaking of my centres and wingers, let's talk about them. We're going to start off with Blake Ferguson first up, 352,000. I think that's a good one. I think it's a bargain for him, especially considering what he's done in previous years. Now, last year, I think it's a write-off Blake Ferguson. Definitely wasn't a good season for him. And I think the fact that he didn't score a try until very, very late in the season, I think it says it all. And the fact that he's still 352,000 despite not really scoring tries. We all know wingers, they get boosted, heavily inflated points in terms of scoring tries. And Ferguson wasn't doing that. However, I think it's going to happen this year. I think he's going to score a lot more tries. I definitely don't think it's going to take 16 rounds for him to score. So I think he's going to rise in price a lot. Maybe not looking to have him there for the whole season, but I am looking to chuck him in there, have his value rise, and I think it will rise quite a bit. Next up, we have Jimmy Roberts, 277,000. A little bit hit and miss, Jimmy Roberts, in terms of fantasy team. He's one of those guys who I don't think is a great Supercoach selection. However, 277,000 for him. I think he's going to get a lot more opportunities to score in this Tigers side. I think the Tigers are going to be a very attacking side, and I think they're going to play through him a lot. Whereas the Rabbitohs, he was just another option. He was in and out. He was injured. They were playing him while he was injured. He definitely didn't look great at the Rabbitohs. Looked uncomfortable. Whereas in the trials at the Tigers, he looked pretty good. In the Indigenous All-Stars game, I thought he looked pretty good as well. So I'm expecting a half-decent season for James Roberts. And to be honest, I just wanted to chuck him in there because he was a cheapie. And I think he's someone who will rise. And I think he will score a couple of tries as well. So might keep him in there long-term. Might not. Just depends on how they use him. But he is definitely someone I would consider for your round one side. Next up, we have David Fusatua, 251,000. Last year, he didn't play, and when he did play, he was sort of in a shitty Warrior side. This year, they look a lot better. A couple of signings, a new coach. Looking to send that to Avasa Sheck on a happy note, you would say. Don't think they're going to make the 8 by any means, but I think David Fusatua is in for a good year. He should be fresh. He's not going to have any carrying injuries, niggling injuries going into the season, you'd think. And I'm expecting a big one for him considering he did sit out last season. You're going to think he's going to want to come back in and make an impact, especially with some of the players that they have. They've got Ewan Aiken there, Peter Hicker's still there. There's a lot of guys who are looking for backline positions, and David Fusatua doesn't want to put a foot wrong because, like I said, he did have last season off. So if he starts the season slow, can see him getting dropped, but I'm thinking he's going to be in for a big one. Between him and Marlo and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, they used to be the benchmark for a back three despite the results of the Warriors, and I'm looking for them to do the exact same thing and Fusatua to have a strong strong start to the season. Then my final starting spot goes to Bailey Simonson. He's at 205,000. I think that's a good one considering a lot of times he was coming off the bench or just filling in every now and again. And with the loss of Nick Kotrick for the Raiders, he's going to step in. He's going to be the starting winger. And even when you look at the Raiders side, there's other positions up for grabs. You have Curtis Scott, who's been a bit injury prone as of late. You've got other centre spots like Jared Kroger's probably not going to start the season. I think there's another wing spot up for grabs. I don't know what's happening with Rapana, but I saw the predicted lineups and there was 2 new wingers to the lineup. So yeah, I do think Simonson is in for a pretty decent season. He looks like he's a guy who's capable, who's just been waiting and biding his time at the Raiders, and they didn't want to let go of him either. So I think that's a good sign in terms of him coming through the Raiders system. So I'm hoping he scores a few tries, and he is a real cheapie, 205,000. You can't go wrong with Bailey Simonson, I think. Now we move on to the bench. I won't dwell on it too much, but we have Jason Saab from Manly. I think he'll get an opportunity at some point. Whether he starts, I'm not sure, but with Tom Trbojevic out, Ruben Garrick and George Defoe both haven't been in great form the last couple of seasons. So I think Jason Saab, he wouldn't have just moved from the Dragons for no reason. So I think he will get a start at Manly. And if he doesn't, I think he'll at least get a chance at some points throughout the season. Whether that translates to good Supercoach points, I don't know, but I've chucked him in there. We have Tessie New from the Broncos. Looks to be getting a starting centre gig. He played a little bit last year. Don't know if the Broncos will go well, but I'm not really concerned with at this point. I'm just looking for players who are going to be playing week in, week out, and maybe Tessie New is going to be one of them. I'm hoping at least he's going to get a go. He can rise up a little bit, and then I can find another cheapie or something. Just look, he's just a cash builder, really. That's honestly the point of him. And then we have Dane Laurie. He's someone who's a bit of a smoky. Don't know how he's going to go. Looked pretty good in the trials, but at the same time, it is a trial game. I'd say at this point, we just take it with a grain of salt. But I think he's going to get a position at fullback. Adam Dewey looks to be moving to the halves. Moses Mbai, I think he's just not going to be in the side. He's just not good enough. But Dane Laurie, I'd say the reason they look to get him over immediately is because they want him to have an impact immediately. So I'm thinking he's going to at least start, whether it's wing, whether it's fullback. I think he's worth chucking him in there, and I think a lot of people are going to be thinking the same thing. So yeah, they're my reserves. Now we're going to move on to our halves. I'm just going to cover all of them in one section. So halfbacks, we have Nathan Cleary and Mitchell Moses. I think that's really strong. That could be a good halves pairing. The problem is Mitchell Moses isn't in the 5'8 position, and either is Cleary. And I think it's always nice to have a strong halves like on the bench. Especially like if Nathan Cleary goes down, Mitchell Moses can slot straight in. And both of them are goal kickers. And obviously Nathan Cleary is kind of picks himself. I think he's the second most expensive player in the whole game, 734,000. If he's not, he's at least right up there. And I think he's in for a big season in terms of Penrith. I can't see them dropping off too much. They're going to be a side that's going to be scoring points, and it's all going to revolve around Nathan Cleary, him throwing the last pass a lot of times. He's got a great kicking game, and he goal kicks. And same can kind of be said for Mitchell Moses. Obviously not as good as Nathan Cleary, in my opinion, but I think the Eels are going to have a pretty good season, and I think he's going to be involved in a lot of tries. And one thing he did like last season was a try assist, and I think that's going to be up a little bit. He's got Dylan Brown there, and Dylan Brown's going to have another season under his belt as well. So he's going to have a little bit more experienced halves partner there. So I think it's going to be a good move having Mitchell Moses. Whether he's there long term, I don't know. It is a lot of money to have on the bench, but that's who I've gone with at the moment, and he will be one of my reserves as well. Moving on to 5'8", Michael Morgan, 386,000. I think that's pretty good for Michael Morgan. The only problem is, obviously, he is quite injury prone at this point in his career. There's a lot of talk about even shifting him from the halves, moving him to the forwards, moving him to the centres, just because of injuries. And you got to try and fit him in at some point because he's the captain. He's such a good player. But I think he's been slept on in the sense that this dude was literally one of the best halves in the game before the injuries really struck him. And I feel like it got to the point where Cowboys fans weren't really concerned with losing Jonathan Thurston because Michael Morgan was so good and had stepped up so much. You had Jake Clifford, you had Tamari Martin, a lot of those guys, but they've all fallen off, and the Cowboys have just fallen off in general. However, a new coach, hopefully a new lease of life for the Cowboys, and a new lease of life for Michael Morgan. So that's what I'm banking on. 386,000, hopefully going to bank on that one too, and he's going to rise in value a lot. That's at least my thought process in chucking him in. I feel like a lot of people will do that. I've done it in previous years where he wasn't really rated very highly in terms of Supercoach, but I think I had him in for a little bit and got rid of him, so that's probably what I'll look to do this time as well. And then my 5'8 bench position is Connor Watson. A lot of talk about him, whether he's going to play in the forwards, is he going to play hooker, where is he actually going to play? Where is Connor Watson's best position? A lot of people are saying the lock position, and if he is going to play lock, I think that'll be a really, really good thing for Supercoach. 288,000. I think that's a bargain if you're going to get a starting lock, or at least someone who's going to play decent minutes, have a good work rate, a lot of tackles, a lot of runs. and I can see him actually doing that. So yeah, if it is what happens, that's fantastic. If not, it's only 288,000. I think we can work with that. We can get rid of him. I think he will rise in value at least. Now moving on to our second row, starting off with Angus Crichton from the Roosters, 670,000. Another pricey one, but with Boyd Cordner not being there, I think Angus Crichton is going to be a lock in terms of a starting second row position. Well, I don't think so. I know so. He's going to be. Obviously, it took his little bit of time to find his feet at the Roosters, but he's definitely found his feet. He's hit his stride at the Roosters, and I'm expecting a big season for him. His selection kind of explains itself. Like I said, Boyd Cordner not there. He's going to get big minutes. Obviously, I think the new style of play also suits him as well in terms of a faster game. So Angus Crichton, I think he's a good selection. We have Josh Jackson from the Bulldogs, my Bulldogs. You might be thinking, oh, there's a bit of bias there, chucking in Josh Jackson. But for 439,000, I think he's worth a risk. Obviously, he's been stuck out on the right edge, not really having too much ball, not really any good ball at least. And also, he's not going to be making heaps of tackles on just being on the edge. Whereas Trent Barrett has already come out and said he's going to be playing lock this year. So he's going to be in the middle, cleaning up the ruck, making a lot of tackles, hopefully a lot of runs. Even if they are shitty runs, a lot of runs, just a lot more involvement for Jacko. So I'm expecting a big year from him. Plus, he's going to be sort of rejuvenated in the sense that we've got a much better side this year. So hopefully he can get a few more tries and just a little bit more attack in general. And hopefully his price will rise a lot. That's my thought process for Jacko. Then our last position is a former Bulldog. It's Corey Harawira-Naera. John Bateman's left the Raiders. There's a spot to be filled. Corey Harawira-Naera is your man. Now, I think he's probably suspended for the first couple of rounds due to the whole drink driving thing. And the guy is he's just full of controversies. But in terms of his actual price tag, 302,000, I think you can chuck him in there. Whether you want to chuck him in there from the start if he is suspended, I'm pretty sure he is, but I'm not sure exactly how long. But if you don't want to pick him, I'm sure there's some other guys, but I'm sort of playing the long game with him. I'd rather get him in now than try and sub him in later on. He's just there, and I've got other people who can cover the back row as well. We'll get to our subs in a second. But Harawira-Naera is someone who has a really high ceiling. He's good with the offloads. He's got a good step. He's great in attack. As long as he can sort of sort out his defense completely, I think he'll be an absolute star for the Raiders. Now moving on to the bench, starting off with Ben Murdoch-Masila from the Warriors. Highly touted in the Super League. I can't remember him at the Tigers, but I don't remember him doing too much. But the Super League apparently has been killing it. We've seen if there's any position that a player is actually able to transition from in the Super League, it's the forwards. We've seen plenty of forwards come over to the NRL and absolutely kill it. A lot of them are English, but we've got Ben Murdoch-Masila. I think he's Tongan, New Zealand, something along the lines of that. And at 330,000, I think he's going to be a good pickup. Whether that translates to Supercoach points, I don't really know, and I don't know if he's going to start. I don't really know too much about him, but he's someone who I've seen hyped up a lot, and I've definitely bought into the hype as I've chucked him in the side. So 330,000, I think he'll grow a little bit. Moving on to Jacob Host from the Rabbitohs, the former Dragon. Looked really good in the trial, the Charity Shield. I know everybody at the Rabbitohs pretty much looked good. I mean, I probably would have looked good playing against that Dragon side. But in terms of stats, he definitely led from the front. He had a really, really good game, and I'm pretty sure there's an opportunity in that Rabbitohs side, whether it's on the bench, starting side, I don't know, but I think you're going to see a lot of involvement from Jacob Host. Plus, he's going to be that guy he's not the junior anymore. He's now moving into being like a full, proper first-grade player. So I can see him taking the step at the Rabbitohs. He's got a lot of good players around him, so I'm thinking it's a good move for him, moving to the Rabbitohs to start off with, and I think he'll have a good season Supercoach-wise. And last but not least, we have one of the best-looking guys in the NRL, Jordan Riki. Now, there's a lot of hype in terms of his looks, but he definitely does mash it on the field. We saw in the Indigenous All-Stars game, he played for Maori All-Stars, and he had a really good game, scored a try, scored the opening try, I'm pretty sure, and he just had a really good game in general. There's a spot open with David Fafita leaving, and he's already put his hand up and said he wants to play that. Now, I don't know if he'll start, I don't know if he'll be on the bench, maybe he won't even start in round one, I don't even know, but we'll see how it goes. For 277,000, I think he's worth a gamble. I feel like a lot of people will chuck him in there, but hopefully he's not getting hyped up just purely on social media, because there is a lot of hype for him on social media, and I've kind of bought into that. Doesn't necessarily translate to him being a great player on the field, but I think, fingers crossed, he is going to be a good player on the field. Now moving on to our front rowers, I've invested heavily in front rowers. I think you always do. There's always been guys like Gallen, James Graham, Sam Burgess. They're guys that you used to pump heaps of money in. They're not there anymore, so you've got to find someone else. And I've gone with Josh Papali to start off with, 560,000. A little bit risky in terms of, you know he's going to be playing for Queensland, but same time, the Raiders are going to be winning a lot of games this year. He's going to be doing a lot of damage for the Raiders, lots of minutes, hopefully no suspensions, and hopefully he's going to be pumping out those Supercoach points. And his partner for the front row is Big Tino from the Titans. Now, he's valued at 504,000. Now, my thought process for his selection is that if he's already valued at over 500,000 and he was coming off the bench for the Storm, we've seen how good he was for Queensland. He's going to be in a pretty strong Titans 4-pack. You've got your Proctors, you've got your Dave Fafita, you've got him. I think they're in for a big season, the Titans, and the forward pack should be absolutely rolling. You got Fodawaker in there as well. He was another option I considered for the front row, I'll be honest. But I've gone for Tino, also because he can play in the second row as well. He is quite versatile on Supercoach. But I'm expecting a big season for him. He looked pretty good in the trials. I think he's going to get through a lot more work. And I think overall there's going to be a lot more output from him. Obviously, coming off the bench, you're not going to have as many minutes. Therefore, you're not going to have as much impact in the game. So him starting at the Titans, being one of the main men rather than just another Storm player off the bench, I think you're going to see a big season for Tino, and I think his Supercoach points are going to reflect that. Well, that's what I'm hoping anyways. Now, moving on to the bench, I already stated earlier that I invested heavily in the forwards. I think that's fully on showcase here with Paul Vaughan at 513,000. He actually costs more than Tino, despite me having Tino starting. Now, the reason I go for Paul Vaughan is an interesting one because we all know he's a great player. He's been around for a long time now, made his name at the Raiders, came to the Dragons, really stepped up, played for New South Wales. I think he played for Australia too. He's been around for a long time. He's experienced. I think it's now time for him to step up to another level, regain that New South Wales jersey. And in the absence of Tyson Frizzell, Jack DeVellin's still not there. James Graham left last year. The Dragons are really crying out for a leader in that forward pack, especially now McInnes is gone too. You add in another one. But yeah, they're really looking for a forward to step up. And I think Paul Vaughan's going to be the man. You got a pretty inexperienced forward pack all of a sudden. You only really got Tarek Sims there, who's kind of a half-decent player, sort of a rep caliber player, I would say. So Paul Vaughan at 513,000, I think you're going to get a lot more input out of him. Don't know if you're necessarily going to get more minutes, but I think he's going to have a lot more impact in terms of his runs and probably the amount of runs he has. He already is a guy who gets through a fair bit in terms of attack and defense, but he's someone who I think is going to be looking for the ball a lot more due to other guys not being there. Sometimes you chuck a Tyson Frizzell's hand to the night side, and I think you're going to get Supercoach points taken off because he's not going to have to do as much because he's got better players around him. Well, it also goes both ways because you can also get guys who have a pretty shitty forward pack around them, and because of that, they have to do a lot more, and then they end up carrying that side and carrying your Supercoach side. Guys like Payne Haas, I feel like if you chuck him into a Rooster side, not going to have as much impact in terms of your Supercoach, but chuck him in that Bronco side, an inexperienced side, he's going to be putting his hand up for a lot of runs, therefore he's going to get a lot of points. That's what my thought process in terms of Paul Vaughan is. I'm hoping he does that. And the other prop I've gone for is big Spencer Leniu from the Panthers, 218,000. I think it's a pretty good one for him. Didn't really get an opportunity because Penrith are so stacked that all of a sudden their prop position isn't that stacked. We already saw Hetherington leave. I know he was on loan last year, but he's an option gone. We saw James Tummy leave to go to the Tigers, so there's a starting position up for grabs, and in steps Leniu. There's a lot of interest. He talked about Melbourne tried to get him. The Bulldogs were offering big money for him, but he's chose to stay with Penrith, and I'd say there has to be a reason. There has to be something said to him like, we'll chuck you in first grade this year, we'll give you a spot. Whether it's off the bench, starting position, at this point, I'm not looking to use him as an actual reserve. I'm looking for him to be a cash cow, move up, and hopefully bring in someone else who's a lot more high profile and doing a lot better. But in terms of just a guy who I think is a cheaper who will rise, you can't go wrong with him in my opinion. Now we move on to arguably the most important position in the whole Supercoach. It has been for a long time. We've had guys like Cameron Smith just dominating for years. Even guys like Robbie Farah are really good. But now we've got guys like Damien Cook, and that's what I've gone for. I've gone for Damien Cook, 621,000 for Cookie. I'm looking for him to have a good season. He's a guy who I think, if the Rabbitohs are going well, he's going well. He definitely exemplifies everything the Rabbitohs are made of. Very good at attack, gets on the front foot, try assist, lots of tries himself. I'm looking for a big year from Damien Cook, and I think his price tag is justified. The only problem is I've got a lot of guys who are playing Origin as well, so that could be a bit of a problem. However, my bench player, Jaden Brayley from the Knights, I'm looking for him to be a cash cow. I remember having him when he first started for the Sharks, but the good thing about that is that when Damien Cook's out for Origin, Jaden Brayley isn't going to get picked, obviously, so I can chuck him in bearing buys. I'm not sure exactly in terms of when all the buys are, but that's my thought process. Jaden Brayley, coming back from injury, his points are going to be down because he got injured in the games and hasn't played a lot as of late, but he is the new captain of the Knights, and I'd be expecting him to play a good chunk of minutes. Now, I have Connor Watson in the side as well, who could end up playing in the hook position for a little bit in a game, but Jaden Brayley's a good tackler, and I think you're going to get a lot of consistency out of him. And I think at least he might not be scoring your 80s and 60s every week or whatever, but I think he's going to get a solid 50, 60 points. That's what I'm hoping. Just a lot of output in terms of defense. So hopefully my selection is justified. But guys, that's my Supercoach side. Leave in the comment section below. What do you think of the side? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think there's any improvements I can make? I'm open for suggestions because although I've played Supercoach for a long time, I haven't really stuck it out through a season and played consistently. So I'm pretty much I would say I'm a novice at this game as much as I've played it. Also, feel free in the comment section to leave your team in there. I'd be happy to have a look at your side, maybe get some tips and ideas from my own side, and everybody else can take a look at it and get some ideas as well. So go ahead and do that. Also, go ahead and leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Turn on the notification bell. It is very, very important in terms of growing the channel. And also the notification bell, it just notifies you immediately when I've uploaded. You don't have to worry about the sub boxes and have I uploaded, have I not uploaded. And if you're one of these guys, you might even be able to leave a first comment and actually win it. Also, go ahead and give me a follow on social media as well. It's on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke and YT for the most part. Snapchat is also that. But on Facebook, it's just Mr. Luke. So go ahead, give me a like, give me a follow, do all that sort of stuff. And that's where I'm going to wrap up this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. That's my Supercoach slide. Don't know if I'm going to enjoy this season for Supercoach, but yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. I'll see you for the next one. See yous.